This isn't a story about an iceberg. It's a story about who was allowed to survive one, and that story started years before the ship ever left port. The Titanic wasn't just a ship. It was White Star Line's flagship advertisement, the largest, most luxurious liner ever built, designed to sell first-class passengers on sweeping promenades and unobstructed ocean views. The shipyard's own naval architect proposed a new kind of davit, capable of launching as many as 48 lifeboats, enough for every single person who would ever sail on her. White Star Line's chairman rejected the plan. 48 lifeboats would clutter the deck views that were selling first-class tickets. 20 was the legal minimum. 20 was what he chose. Those 20 lifeboats could carry just over 1,100 people. The ship was licensed to carry more than 2,200. The math was never meant to work for everyone. Below decks, the ship itself was built around class. Locked gates and narrow, maze-like corridors separated third-class passengers from the decks above, partly to satisfy immigration inspection laws, but the physical effect was rigid segregation. Most third-class passengers were immigrant families traveling with everything they owned, chasing a new life in America. Many barely spoke English. On the night of April 14, 1912, the ship struck an iceberg. But what happened over the next 2 hours and 40 minutes had just as much to do with class as it did with the sea. In first class, stewards moved cabin to cabin, personally waking and reassuring passengers, guiding them calmly up toward the boats. Deep in the ship, third-class passengers faced a maze of unfamiliar corridors, language barriers, and gates that were locked or blocked, some by policy, some simply by neglect. Women and children first was the rule on paper. In practice, it depended enormously on which deck you were standing on when the order was given. 97% of first-class women survived that night. In third class, fewer than half the women did, only about a third of the children, and barely 1 in 6 of the men. Add it all up, and almost 2 out of every 3 first-class passengers survived that night. For third class, it was 1 in 4. The chairman who insisted on cutting the lifeboats from 48 down to 20 found a seat in one of the last boats launched. He survived. The public never forgave him. Newspapers branded him a coward for the rest of his life, but he was never criminally charged for the decision that helped cost more than 1,500 people their lives. Official inquiries on both sides of the Atlantic exposed the lifeboat shortage and the stark disparities in who survived. Not one person was ever held criminally responsible for either, but the outrage did force real change. 2 years later, international law required every ship to carry enough lifeboats for every person aboard, and a wireless radio operator on watch around the clock. It came far too late for the more than 1,500 people who died that night, disproportionately poor, disproportionately immigrants, disproportionately exactly who the ship's own design had already decided mattered less. The Titanic sank because it struck an iceberg and because of the design assumptions that left it vulnerable, but who survived that night wasn't left to chance. Cutting costs on lifeboats years earlier forced impossible choices in the middle of a crisis, and predictably those choices favored the passengers with status and money. Follow for more of history's deadliest decisions.